Carol Hicks, and this is the fourth of my photographic presentations about a holiday my husband Lester and I took in Namibia in September 2014. This episode is about the Etosha National Park and all the wild animals there. Etosha is a huge salt pan in north-central Namibia, formerly fed by rivers from the north in Angola. Now only Botswana and the Okavango Delta benefit from the rivers, but Etosha is dry. It has a series of wildlife resorts inside the park, mainly on the southern fringe, and the first and largest of these is the Okakwajo village, and it's sufficiently substantial that it even has a tarmac road to enter it. Beyond the staff village, you can see the start of the salt pan, and large groups of animals roam day and night. Okakwajo is blessed with a permanent water hole, so it's topped up from underground water, and therefore the animals come to drink day and night. Early in the morning, it's quiet, but there are birds drinking. Here you see guinea fowl taking advantage of the peace and quiet before the larger animals start rolling in. And the staff take the opportunity to climb over the barricades and tidy up a bit. As the day wears on, the animals start to roam in, and we get springbok and Birchall zebra, oryx, wildebeest, kudu. Here we have some springbok, rather neat little animals, always there, lots of them. And on the other side of the water, you can just see a couple of black-backed jackals. This is a male springbok with his neat little horns. And here we have springbok, Birchall zebra, oryx and wildebeest. And here's a couple of kudu. This man has especially superb horns and a couple of females. And these are wildebeest. Springbok, zebra and oryx all happily drink peacefully together. And there's always quite a lot of zebra. They come in large numbers, but they're always very wary, and they could be suddenly spooked while others carry on grazing and drinking and bathing undisturbed. And there you see that group has been spooked. Then a lone elephant comes trotting in. He's quite a large fellow, and the other smaller animals clearly respect him. And his purpose is to get to his favourite drinking point. And two more lone males come trotting in from another direction, and they all meet up at this drinking point, which is where the fresh water comes in. Not for them, the mucky old drinking, bathing water in the water hole. They want the fresh stuff. And so they all meet around this water hole, large and small bulls. And they have a little tete-a-tete. And this is how you have a little doze and rest your heavy trunk. When the elephants are bathing, they tend to throw the water along their sides, under their tummies, and behind their ears. But I was waiting to photograph one which threw the water over his head, and eventually I was rewarded with this one, who created a wonderful spiral as he chucked his water over his head. Eventually, the elephants wander off, and the giraffes start to nervously approach, very slowly at first. And then they come in a bit closer, very hesitant, and eventually they get down to drink. And as dusk came on, more giraffes arrived, including some young ones. And as it grew darker, a rhino appeared. We went on a night drive to see what other animals we could see. The driver used an infrared light so as not to disturb the animals as much as possible. This elephant suddenly appeared right beside the truck, coming out of the bush, just a few feet from us. Here we have a hyena, only ever seen at night, and another rhino. And at last we found a lion family. We had to put the full light on to see them because they were quite a distance from the road. But they weren't bothered, they were just resting in a large family group. There aren't that many lions in Namibia. Back at the waterhole, which is lit at night, was a family of elephants and a family of giraffes and a rhino, and eventually a small group of lions. Next morning at the restaurant, we found a laughing dove and a Cape starling. The Cape starlings are particularly used to people, and they would come onto the tables which had been abandoned and pick up their own breakfast. The weaver birds had built a huge nest overlooking the Okakwejo waterhole. They enter and leave the nest through holes underneath. They're called communal weaver birds because they all share the same nest. And this one is clearing up some of the straw that has dropped out of the nest, and will go off and repair it. As we left the Okakwejo site, there was a huge collection of zebra. And yes, they were spooked. So moving on across the park, you can see some of the expanse of the salt pan. We're moving on to another resort, Halali, in the centre of the park. A passing storm missed us. And you see giraffes on the horizon gliding along, and then they'll come across the road. They're not at all bothered by vehicles that they're very well used to. This is the acacia bushes that they use, that they eat, really, really spiky things. Must have really tough tongues. And of course we have to have zebra crossing. Often you'll find groups of zebra at water holes, drinking companionably. And what happens? Yes, they get spooked. And here we have an oryx posing. And we spotted this monitor lizard on the road ahead of us and just managed to get our cameras out in time before he went over the edge of the road and disappeared. He's quite a big chap, about 2 foot long in the body and 2 foot on the tail, so quite substantial. And yes, you see butterflies too. This is the Halali waterhole, again a permanent waterhole and lit at night. There's guinea fowl here while it's quiet from other animals. You view the Halali waterhole from a rocky platform formed of banded gneiss, about 1800 millennia or over a third of the age of the earth. It's sandstone and mudstone altered under great heat and pressure. The site was a bit of a trip hazard by day and certainly at night. A little squirrel came to see us while we were watching. There weren't so many animals here. Here are a few impala and inevitably a group of zebras, a hyena and a rhino who stayed around for a very long time. The accommodation at Halali was scattered through light tree cover, very spacious site. The restaurant was extensive and the rooms, our lodge, was also spacious. And just inside the wall by the door, I found this huge cricket, about 4 inches long, quite a big chap. From Halali, we moved on to the third centre at Namutoni, again crossing the inhospitable Pan. And this is the sort of surface of the Pan. But along the edge, you do get occasional water holes and a little flowering plant. And a kudu male and his female nearby. A zebra poses for his picture. Rather dusty wildebeest. And suddenly a huge elephant lumbers out of the scrub. And then 2 others. The one in the foreground, you can see has a dribble by his eye and a wetness under his back legs. And this indicates that he's coming into must. It's a periodic condition of male elephants, and it's characterized by highly aggressive behavior because of the large rise in the reproductive hormones. The testosterone levels in an elephant in must can be as much as 60 times greater than at other times. So best avoided because they can be very aggressive. But the giraffes were quite peaceful. And that's a Corrie bustard we passed in the shade of the tree, and some wildebeest also resting in the shade in the middle of the day. There were quite a few termite mounds. This one was enormous and growing out of a tree, or the tree was maybe growing out of the termite mound. Hard to say which came first. And yet more elephants at another waterhole. And as we arrived at Namutoni, we were greeted by banded mongoose, playful little creatures, never still, always mewing as they scrabble about. Namutoni was a fort, a German colonial fort, real Foreign Legion style, but rather spruced up and clean at the moment. Inside, it was very quiet and tidy during the middle of the day. It now contains restaurants, bars, and tourist shop. And you can climb up onto the roof and get a view of the salt pan. There was a large fruit tree in the centre, inhabited by grey-crested parrots. And while we were there, we met a bunch of giggling, cheerful schoolgirls on a day out. And as soon as they spotted our cameras, they wanted to pose for us. And they seemed to think it's necessary to strut their stuff in all sorts of odd poses in front of a camera, but they were great fun to meet. The waterhole at Namutoni was just beyond that thatched building in the middle foreground, but there weren't a lot of animals there. Just a lone rhino wandering around as the light fell. But the accommodation was generous, a huge villa to ourselves, large living and sleeping area, a sunken bath with twin showers, and there were more showers outside in the little patio from which I was able to photograph the dawn rising and the moon setting. And I hope you will join us for our 5th and final episode, taking us through central Namibia to see the work of Africat, a conservation charity, and the birds and interesting rock formations at Irongo.